Welcome. I'm Stephanie Townsend Ayala, elder law attorney and your video host for the El Paso Eldercare channel. Joining me today is James Baca, Vice President of Bienvivir. Thank you so much for coming in today,
Thank you
James.
very much.
I've admired your work for such a long time. You've been at Bienvivir, and I think that a lot of people could benefit from learning more about what you offer. Tell me, describe the services.
Yes, ma'am. Well, Bienvivir is a PACE program. It's an acronym. It stands for Program of the All-Inclusive Care of the Elderly. It is the service delivery model by which we deliver services to all the participants in the community that are in our program. We have 3 PACE programs in the state of Texas. Bienvivir All-Inclusive Senior Health is El Paso's PACE program. There's also one in Lubbock and one in Amarillo.
El Paso, in fact, yours was the very first. You were the pilot program.
For the state of Texas, that's correct. And back in the late 70s, when this whole project launched, we were one of the first 6 in the country.
And so from that, the other program, your success is why the program went on to be larger.
Yes, ma'am. We are the largest one in the state of Texas right now. As a matter of fact, we passed Texas legislature authorized 3 more PACE programs to come online here in the next couple of years or so. So cities like Dallas, Houston, and San Antonio will be setting up a PACE program here in the very near future. And as a matter of fact, we submitted for our bid to get the San Antonio site. So Bienvivir will be expanding into San Antonio.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Well, let's start out. Let's say that my mommy just had a stroke and she's in the hospital and they've informed me that she can't go home alone. So what do I do? What happens next?
Well, the easiest way is to contact our intake and assessment department at 562-3444.
562-3434, 915-562-3434.
Yes. And what will happen next is our staff there in intake will get initial information from the family member and set up an appointment for one of our nurses to go out to their home.
So you actually send it, the whole process starts by you guys sending a registered nurse.
A licensed vocational nurse will go out and conduct an interview with the family and or the participant, get the information they need on the front end. What is the situation? What's the medical information?
They'll go to the doctor as well?
Sometimes we've had families that have had a physician there, there may be a family friend. We'll get as much information on the front end to include medical records with the family's authorization to get as good a picture as we can as to what the situation is for that individual.
And then what happens?
What we'll do with that information is we'll take it back and we'll set up an appointment at one of our centers for our medical team to assess the potential enrollee. And we'll also get the ball rolling with the state on the financial application.
And that's really important that people understand. I work with the long-term care element of the Medicaid program in Texas, Department of Aging and Disability Services, as well as the STAR++ programs.
Right.
And they really are mirror images of your PACE program.
To a great degree, they are.
Yes, and so when you start that process rolling, it's important that you have, it's a means-tested application program, and there are 2 levels of eligibility. First, you have your medical eligibility, and the second level is having your financial eligibility.
Correct. That's correct. That's correct. And our teams will help the families and the participant, potential participant, as much as possible on the front end to get them directed to who they need to speak to. On the front end, our medical teams can be set up to see the potential enrollee fairly quickly, generally within 2 weeks. On the financial side, that application has to go through the state Medicaid eligibility specialist, and they'll go through their process with them, and that takes a little bit longer.
And that's where I help folks too, is that the minute you file the application, the state has 45 days in which
45 days.
They can either say yes, no, or give me more information.
That's correct.
And so in my experience, the state caseworkers wait until the absolute last day, the 44th and a half day, before calling and saying there's a problem or we need more information.
It can take up to that long. In our social work and our intake department folks will go and help the families and help Medicaid eligibility specialists get that paperwork and hopefully get that process closed out so we can get them enrolled into the program.
So once they're enrolled in the program, what are the services they get?
They get the full array of services, just as the acronym implies. It is all inclusive and comprehensive. Once a person becomes eligible and comes into the program, they'll get assigned an interdisciplinary team.
Interdisciplinary team. That means you have a dietitian. We
have a physician, a registered nurse, a dietitian,
activity director,
a recreation activities directors, nursing, the full array of rehab to include occupational therapy, physical therapy, speech pathologists. That whole team conducts a top-to-bottom assessment of the participant's need, and a care plan is developed. And from there, every 6 months thereafter, that plan is reviewed with the participant and the family to see if any adjustments need to be made and services are delivered.
Well, let's go back to my example of my mamacita who had a stroke. What happens physically to her? Like, what is the practical truth of how that process works? Where does she go? What happens?
Well, the point of our program and the goal of our program is to have folks living in the community for as long as possible in a safe environment that lends to quality of life, which is one of our goals. So that care plan is deployed at the home, but the main element is that we, in our transportation services, we bring them into our centers. We have an adult daycare center, which is licensed by the state. So we'll bring them in. They attend their adult daycare and receive services there, and then whatever particular discipline needs them, whether it be OT or nursing, they can go and see their participant at that time.
This is somebody who has maybe someone living in the home with them. They're not living alone, so they can stay home. What if there's nobody who's living in the home and they can't go back home? What then?
We are responsible for the care 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, even after they leave the adult daycare. So we have a home health component to our service delivery system. So we have nurses and staff that can go see them. If it comes to a point where it becomes dangerous for them to continue living alone in their home, we contract with facilities out in town, whether it be a nursing facility or assisted living. That's correct. Or assisted living facilities, type A's, type B's, where we could refer families and potentially place their family members there.
And you even have your own assisted living facility. There's a 44-bed, a beautiful facility off McKinley. I've been there before, and it's a lovely.
Thank you very much. Yes, ma'am. At our McKinley Center, we have a 44-bed assisted living type B facility there. That facility specializes in Alzheimer's dementia care.
And so it's one of the 2 licensed dementia care psychiatric units in West Texas.
Yep, that's correct.
Well, that's something to really be proud of, and I know that you've had a lot of successes. I know from reading about you as well as my experience with my clients. We're very grateful. The fact that it is an all-inclusive. I don't think people understand. You cover all of their room, their boarding, their medical, their medicine, their visits to the doctors, their daycare, all of those things is included.
Yeah, transportation included as well.
That's a huge plus for so many families.
It is. On the medical side, for any specialist services, neurology, cardiology, that sort of thing, we contract with those specialists out in town. And if our primary care physicians, which work for us and oversee the care of our participants, deem that there is a need for one of our participants to see that specialty, we would transport them to their appointment.
That's great to know. We're talking today with James Baca, Vice President of Bienvivir. I'm Stephanie Townsend Ayala, and we'll be right back. And we are back with the El Paso Eldercare Channel. I'm Stephanie Townsend Ayala, elder law attorney, along with James Baca, Vice President at Bienvivir. And James, what are some of the misconceptions and what are some of the barriers to getting approved for Bienvivir?
Oftentimes people come to us and there's money issues. They may have received ill-informed advice from people they may know about how they qualify for a program. They may think they make too much, too little. They think that Bienvivir may be a nursing facility. They have misconceptions about what type of services we provide or don't provide. So oftentimes that can be taken care of just by a simple phone call. We'd be happy to talk folks through, educate them. Our outreach department goes out often and does these education seminars.
Say the number again. What was that number?
It is 562-3444.
915.
Area code 915.
562-3444.
That's correct.
And that's the intake, and they can get all the information from that.
That'll get you the main number to our facility, and they can get a hold of intake from there.
So who does qualify for your services?
The main qualification criteria for our program are essentially three. An individual has to be 55 years of age and above. They need to live within the catchment area, and that catchment area for El Paso is defined roughly by a border that encompasses Sean Haggerty to the northeast, Joe Battle on the east side, to the south, the border essentially is our southern edge of our catchment, and up to Executive Center.
So you're basically covering the zip codes in El Paso that are more than, say, 70-80% poverty rates.
Absolutely.
Okay, and so that's fascinating. And so some people who might live in the wrong zip code might not qualify.
That's potentially true. Of course, talking with the intake folks, they can see what they can do about that. Oftentimes we have folks that their main address may be outside our catchment, but they may actually reside with a family member that's inside our catchment area.
That changes things. I find that a lot.
That changes things.
You know, I have so many people walk into my office saying, "Oh, we're never going to qualify for Medicaid," and they walk out understanding that they do. They think that just owning a home means they can't qualify, or making more than $700 a month means they can't. And that's not true, is it?
That's correct. We highly encourage folks that are looking for services, in particular our program, to call or come in and sit down with our intake folks. We'll take as much time as we need to help those folks and educate them so they can make an educated decision as to what they want to do with their loved one.
And what are some of the other misconceptions in terms of, one of the things that I find clients are not aware of, because you are all-inclusive, it means that they have to go with your doctors, and they can't necessarily keep going to the doctors that they went to before. But when you do an all-inclusive, you have to have certain guidelines.
That's correct. We have primary care physicians that are assigned as members of our interdisciplinary team. Oftentimes a misconception is that a doctor that a potential participant is seeing out in town, they have to come in and be overseen by our primary care physician once they enroll into the program. But they are seeing a doctor out in town who may be a specialist and not necessarily a PCP. And oftentimes when we tell them they have to move over to our physician, that's a bit of a turnoff for them. But we often find that that person that they're seeing is a specialist, and we may contract with them already. So again, coming in, sitting down, and talking through with the family as to what the actual situation is, oftentimes we'll take care of that.
And so when people come in and you try to provide services, if you've identified somebody who definitely needs your services and you found somebody, what happens when they refuse?
And that can happen, and it happens from time to time. Again, we call them participants for a reason, because they participate in the development of their plan of care, they participate in their choices that they are making on how we are going to proceed with any form of treatment.
What's the number one reason somebody refuses service?
There are a bunch. Some of them may not like a certain specialist out in town, and may want to switch to see another cardiologist, for example.
And then you try to accommodate by getting that cardiologist on board?
We do. Again, the great majority of these types of situations can be solved simply by communicating and sitting down with the participants and really drilling down as to what the real issue is, meeting with their family, and finding out what the issue is, and then coming to a resolution that everybody agrees to.
And I know that you have some highly respected physicians on board, and I'm aware of some of them that are in the community, so
we do.
You really do.
We do. We have a great set of physicians that work for us. We're really lucky from that.
So any other misconceptions?
Those are essentially it. I mean, people are used to getting medical care in a manner in which they're used to out in town prior to us, or not, which is more often.
My problem is they don't want to go to the doctor.
Exactly, more often the case. When they come our way, they're kind of in bad shape. They've been very neglectful of their health care and healthcare needs for a great many years. So once they enroll into the program, there's a lot of upfront work that has to happen to get those folks to a baseline where they're stabilized.
And at some point, do you have to find yourself in a situation of finding a third party to make substituted decisions?
That happens from time to time as well. We have the best situation is if we have a participant with a family that's really invested and involved into what's going on with their loved one. However, and unfortunately, often it occurs that this person doesn't have anyone, and guardianship, is an option that we seek, and we work with the probate court with those folks to help get those folks somebody to oversee their
Right.
healthcare needs.
And there's a guardian of last resort in El Paso County, in addition to the Department of Aging and Disability Services can also file for guardianship.
That's correct.
And work with
That's
them.
correct. And we have partners out in town that we feel comfortable referring to if they need specialized services and advice, such as legal advice.
Excellent. And how many participants do you have, and do you have room for a lot more?
The current situation is this. Unfortunately, we are capped by the state of Texas as to how many participants we can serve. And right now that number is 891.
Is that just for El Paso County?
That is just for El Paso County and specific to Bienvivir.
But you serve other counties, don't you?
We have PACE programs in other counties in Texas, as I mentioned, Amarillo and Lubbock, and they have their own caps as well. But right now we have about 20 open slots underneath our cap. So we have folks that are in the enrollment process as we speak. And hopefully we can get back up to that cap and serve those individuals who have that high need.
You said there's some legislation right now in Austin. Would that increase the cap at all, or do you know? Or
as you know, working in the field, there is great need here in El Paso County for folks who need these types of services.
Tremendous need.
Absolutely, absolutely.
There are so many people who are living in misery and filth and squalor, and they could be so helped by your services.
Absolutely. Every biennium, we have a team in Austin working with our legislators to get that cap lifted and help them understand the benefits of PACE and what it is it does here in El Paso.
Well, this would be a good time to call your legislators in Austin then.
Please do.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming in. It's just been really enlightening and an amazing discussion. Thank you. James Baca, Vice President at Bienvivir in El Paso. You want to give that number again?
Sure. Area code 915-562-3444.
That's 915-562-3444. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time on El Paso Eldercare Channel. I'm Stephanie Townsend Ayala.
Thank you.